Hi everyone, my name is David and this is Brian.
Hello.
And in today's video, we're going to cover the installation of Oceanside Glasstile Tessera on a backsplash. We will cover substrate prep, tile installation, grouting, and sealing. If you want to check out more focus videos, go to our YouTube channel or check out the links below.
So the first step in any tile installation is going to be to inspect our material, which we have right here. So when you receive your tile order, the lead box, usually box number 1, will have a sticker here. It says instructions enclosed. This is to let you know that the installation guide is in this box. Now we do include one installation guide per order. It's not in every box. In addition to the installation instructions in this box, it's also available for download on our website. And the tile we're installing here today is our Tessera 1x1 mosaics. These are a hand-broken rustic edge tile, but they're also paper face mounted. Now what paper face means is that there's paper mounted to the front of the tile to keep these in a sheet. So when you open the box and you see tile like this, you'll actually be looking at the back of the tile. It's important to keep that in mind. However, even though this is the back of the tile, we can still inspect it to make sure it's the right product. And we'll show you how to do that. So we're going to take the top sheet from each box and lay it down on a flat work surface in an area with good lighting. Now what we're doing here is we're looking from sheet to sheet for color consistency. Now while the tile's on this brown paper, which does alter the color as we're looking at it face down, we're looking sheet to sheet to make sure it's all the same color, so we don't have one sheet a different color, just to make sure we got what we actually ordered. In addition, if you flip it over and put it on a white surface, you can actually look at the exposed edge of the tile and get an idea of what the color is to make sure, again, it is exactly what was ordered. Now, we have an idea that all the boxes are relatively consistent. We're going to just pull one sheet out of each box, do a quick comparison down the line, and stack them up on the other end.
As you're inspecting, you may notice some bubbles, folds, or wrinkles in the glass tile. You also may see some slight chipping along the edge. This is inherent to our manufacturing process and is to be expected. However, if at any point you have any concern, please call us before installation at the toll-free number on the box. We've completed material inspection and now we're ready to move on to the next step of the project. We've collected all of our tools. For this job, we're going to have to remove the 6-inch backsplash off the countertop to prepare the substrate for tile installation. We're going to do that now. The first step is to use a razor knife to carefully cut any grout or sealant on either side of the granite splash. Next, carefully drive a putty knife behind the granite to help break it loose. Then, use a small piece of wood or door shim to protect the drywall and break the granite free with a pry bar. Using a 4-inch razor scraper, remove any remaining adhesive from the wall and sealant from the countertop. Be careful not to scratch the countertop. Even with careful demo, there will usually be some drywall repair needed before the tile can be installed. Small dents and divots in the drywall should be filled with joint compound. To make repairs and prep easier, remove the cover plates. Large or deep sections of damage may require multiple layers of joint compound or even removal and replacement of drywall section. Any areas where drywall is replaced need to include fiberglass mesh tape over the repair joints. Once dried, joint compound repairs need to be sanded flat. During this step, keep in mind that a flatter tile substrate will make for an easier and better mosaic tile installation. After the drywall repairs are sanded flat, prime the entire backsplash with a quality latex-based primer. This step is particularly important when installing a translucent glass tile. Joint compound is extremely absorptive. Any exposed repairs may cause the thin set to dry a slightly different color and lead to an inconsistent, blotchy appearance behind the tile.
Now determine the tile layout.
Measure the backsplash and some uninstalled tile to determine a starting point that yields a balanced appearance and reduces the number of small cuts.
Depending on your layout, it may be helpful to pre-make a few cuts before you mix thinset and start installing tile. In this case, we'll need to cut tile where the backsplash meets the underside of the cabinets and range hood. We'll be pre-cutting 2 sheets.
On this wall, we've decided to start with a whole tile at the countertop and on a vertical line centered over the stove. A small wood ledger board installed in the stove area will help keep the tile level when working between the countertops.
Glass tile should be cut with a wet tile saw equipped with a continuous rammed diamond blade that is made specifically for cutting glass tile. Because paper-faced mosaics are mounted with water-soluble glue, wet cutting a full sheet requires a little setup on the saw. First, cover the saw tray with a piece of 1/4-inch tile backer board and raise the saw head so the blade only cuts through half the board thickness. This will give you a solid, consistent support for the small mosaic tile. Dress the saw blade by cutting a 60 grit dressing stone, which will expose the abrasive diamond in the blade edge. Periodically dressing the blade will promote efficient, chip-free cutting. Next, cut another piece of tile backer board to a dimension that is slightly larger than a sheet of mosaics. Along one edge of this second board, install a strip of self-adhesive compressible foam weather strip. Place the tile sheet on the covered saw tray with paper side up and align the cut line with the blade. Lay the second board on top of the mosaic sheet covering the side of the cut that is going to be used. Make sure the weather strip side is down and against the blade. The board and weather strip will protect the sheet from saw overspray and keep the paper dry. Apply enough downward pressure to compress the weather strip, which will prevent water from flowing under the board and stabilize the mosaic during cutting. Turn off the saw, carefully remove the top board, and towel dry the mounting paper. Flip the sheet over on a dry, flat surface and towel dry the back of the tile prior to installation.
Alright, so our backsplash is all prepped, our layout's done, and we're ready to start setting tile, and now we're going to be mixing thinset. But before we do that, I wanted to talk to you a little about thinset selection. We're working with a translucent glass tile, so the color of the thinset is extremely important. Page 3 of the Oceanside Glasstile Installation Guide includes a list of recommended thinsets. However, not all of these thinsets are the same color. We do call out 3 thinsets in here as bright white, and they are generally recommended for translucent tile. Now we have an example here for you to show you some of the difference. You have 2 piles here of 2 different thinsets. One of these is a more white thinset, and you can see the other is quite a bit off-white. This color difference will be noticeable behind a translucent glass tile and can make a major difference. If ever in doubt, the best course of action is to make a sample board, have your customer sign off on it before you proceed.
Thinset mixing instructions will vary by manufacturer, so always refer to the bag. In most cases, you should add the powder to the liquid and mix with a low-speed mixer and paddle. When mixing thinset, it is important to follow the manufacturer's recommendations for the proper liquid to powder ratio. The thinset bag will specify the amount of liquid to mix with a full bag. However, because we are only mixing 1/4 of a bag at a time, we've equally divided the powder into 4 buckets and measured out the correct amount of liquid. Mix until the thinset is consistent and lump-free, which usually takes 1 or 2 minutes. Allow the thinset to sit for 8 to 10 minutes and remix. Never add additional water or powder after initial mixing. Let's set some glass tile.
Use the flat side of a trowel and firmly spread a small amount of thinset on the wall. This ensures a good bond to the substrate. Next, add additional thinset and use a 3/16 by 1/4-inch V-notch trowel to comb full notches in one direction. Use the flat side of the trowel to flatten the notches and achieve a smooth, consistent setting bed. This will help ensure 100% thinset contact and eliminate the appearance of notch marks behind the tile. During flattening, use light pressure and try to avoid removing thinset. Place the sheets into the thinset with firm, even pressure. If thinset has been on the wall for more than a few minutes, it's a good idea to make sure it hasn't skinned over. To do this, lightly touch the thinset. If the thinset is still tacky and a small amount transfers to your finger, it is still good. If your finger comes off clean, the thinset has sat too long and skinned over. If skinning occurs, the thinset will need to be removed from the wall and thrown away, so don't spread more than a few sheets worth at a time. After setting a few sheets, tap them with a wooden beading block and a small finish hammer. This will help ensure a good bond between the tile and the thinset and achieve the flattest possible installation. Do not use a rubber grout floater or steel trowel for this step. They both tend to be too flexible to consistently bed the tile. About 15 to 30 minutes after the tile is installed, begin lightly wetting the paper with a damp sponge. The key is to keep the paper wet by wiping several times over a 5 to 10 minute period. Do not allow the paper to dry out, but don't flood the installation with a dripping sponge. Once the paper has fully absorbed the water, the glue will release. Begin peeling from the corner. If the glue has released, the paper should peel away fairly easily. If the paper is pulling tile out of the thinset, wet the paper again and wait a few more minutes. The reason the mounting paper is removed while the thinset is still fresh is to allow for adjustment of individual mosaics. Oceanside glass tile is handmade and each piece will vary in shape and size. However, make adjustments with the goal of creating a consistent field of mosaics and the illusion that each mosaic was hand-placed. Pay particular attention to the joints where sheets meet and adjust the tile as needed to eliminate sheet lines. A common mistake with paper-faced mosaics is leaving the paper on until the thinset has fully dried, which eliminates the opportunity to adjust the tile and quite often leads to the appearance of obvious sheet lines. So pull the paper as you go and make adjustments. You'll get a much better finished product. There will be a little glue left on the surface of the tile at this point, but don't worry about it. That will be cleaned off in a later step. If the glue residue is sticky and interferes with making adjustments, just wet your finger prior to adjusting the tile. Confirm the power has been turned off at the breaker, unscrew the switches and plug receptacles. Leave the switches and plugs wired in, but gently pull them away from the wall to make space to work around them. To set the tile around switches or outlets, first measure and mark the cut on a whole sheet. The tile should be cut even with the edges of the electrical box. Use a razor knife to cut through the paper and remove any tiles that need to be cut. Any straight cuts can be made on the wet saw or with a pair of glass mosaic nippers. Mosaic nippers don't always make the perfect cut, but cuts around the outlets will get covered with a plate and don't need to be perfect anyway. The inside corner cuts, or L cuts, will need to be made on the wet saw. To remove the paper from the cut pieces, soak them in water for a few minutes. Install the whole sheet around the outlet as normal, and then fill in the cut pieces individually. Check the switch or plug for fit, and make sure to put a notch in the tile for the cover plate screw.
There are a number of techniques to trim out an Oceanside glass tile mosaic installation, but one of the most common is to utilize one of our liner tiles as trim, which is what is being done here. This requires a little detailing of the liner prior to installation. Check out the video description for a link to our liner as trim video for more detailed instructions. To install the trim pieces, first spread a thin layer of thinset on the wall. Next, back butter the trim pieces with a little thinset and press it into the fresh thinset on the wall. If the mosaic tile below the trim has had time to fully set, the liner pieces can be spaced off the mosaic. If the mosaic tile is still fresh, hold the liner in place with a little masking tape. Give the thinset 24 hours to cure before you remove the spacers or tape.
Allow wall installations to cure for at least 24 hours before beginning the cleaning and grouting process. Use a razor knife to remove any thinset that has come up through the joints. If this is done the day after the tile is installed, the thinset should still be relatively soft and easy to cut out. Wipe the surface with a damp sponge to reactivate the glue. Shake excess water from the scrub brush to prevent flooding the installation. Then, use a plastic bristle brush and water to scrub the surface. Clean rinse with a sponge, and then towel dry. Notice the difference in the tile appearance after the glue has been totally removed.
Just like with thinset, be sure to strictly follow the cement-based grout manufacturer's mixing directions and measure your liquid and powder. Add the powder to the liquid and mix with a low-speed mixer until the grout is fully mixed, consistent, and lump-free. Allow the mixture to sit for 8 to 10 minutes and then remix. Never add additional water or powder after initial mixing. Use a rubber grout float to spread the grout across the tile surface. Work the grout in multiple directions and use enough pressure to force the grout into the joints until they are full. Use the edge of the float at a sharp angle to scrape excess grout from the surface. Use a margin trowel or razor knife to remove any grout that is remaining in the joints between the tile and the countertop and at any inside corners. After the grout has taken its initial set, use a lightly damp sponge to wipe the surface, removing excess grout and smoothing the joints. On occasion, there may be a grout residue stuck in the normal wrinkles and folds in the surface of the tile. If desired, it can be removed with the tip of a razor knife. After the grout has taken its final set, use a well-wrung out sponge to clean wash the tile. Make one pass with the sponge, flip it over, make another pass, and then rinse. After the final rinse, allow the surface of the tile to dry. Any remaining grout haze should be relatively light and easily removed by buffing with a clean cloth or lint-free paper towel.
Cement-based grout should be sealed with Ocean Care High Performance Penetrating Sealer. This low residue and low odor sealer formula is easy to use with gloss mosaics and can be applied immediately after grouting. For wall installations, it's easiest to apply the sealer with a spray bottle. Pour the sealer into a trigger spray and spray the sealer on the wall. Allow the sealer to soak into the grout for a few minutes and then buff the unabsorbed excess sealer off the surface with a clean, dry cloth. Apply 2 coats about 20 minutes apart. Grout should be periodically resealed, but if maintained with the proper Ocean Care cleaner such as all-purpose cleaner and degreaser or pH-neutral tile and stone cleaner, this grout will be well protected for many years. Visit oceancareproducts.com for more maintenance information.
To replace the switch and plug receptacles, you may need to use longer machine screws to accommodate the thickness of the tile. Also, to avoid cracking the tile, be careful not to over-tighten the screws. Mask all the areas of the tile and countertop that need to be filled with sealant. Hold the tape back about 1/16 of an inch from both sides of the joint. Then, use a caulk gun to apply a thin bead of sealant. Use a wet finger to press the sealant into the joint and smooth the surface. Once all the sealant has been applied and smoothed, remove the masking tape.
Knuckle up your helper and have a cold one, because your Oceanside Glasstile Backsplash is done.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed our video and found it informative. If you have any questions, please give us a call. And remember to keep an eye out for future Oceanside Glasstile installation videos.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Don't do anything Captain Ocean Care wouldn't do. And always remember, keep it clean. Nice work.